Welcome to the Elder Darkness. Tonight we descend into the whispering mists of forgotten lands, where ancient powers stir and shadows lengthen. A lone figure walks beneath the starlit skies, hooded, silent, and patient, moving through the ruins of a war long past. His name is lost, his face unknown, but his hunger remains. Sauron, the fallen lieutenant of Morgoth, does not sleep. He lingers, biding his time, and now, in the aftermath of the First Age, as Middle-earth lies fractured and weary, he begins again. You probably won't survive this story, but then again, very few did. So before we start entering the world of Middle-earth, please take a moment to like my videos and subscribe to my channel, but only if you feel comfortable with this Middle-earth lore, and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. I always love seeing which corner of the world you're tuning in from. Now, lie back and relax as we travel to the world of Middle-earth. Ashes of the First Fall. As the Second Age begins, Sauron slips into shadow, pretending repentance while quietly watching the East awaken. The seas have swallowed Beleriand. Morgoth, bound in chains, is cast beyond the world, and the survivors of that final, apocalyptic war drift eastward, carrying only fragments of ancient glory. Amid the ruins of their master's dark kingdom, few remember the lieutenant who once forged fortresses and armies in silence. Sauron, the shapeshifter, the forger of fear. But he remembers, and unlike Morgoth, he is not prideful. He does not rage. He learns. At first, Sauron vanishes. Not literally, of course. He retreats, his presence soft as fog, invisible to most but always near. In the wake of the War of Wrath, Valinor's gaze turns westward, and the Elves build tall towers across Lindon and Eriador, watching the sea. The Númenorians begin rising far to the west, noble and strong. And in the shadow of all this glory, Sauron melts into Middle-earth's eastern lands.
No thunderclap, no declaración.
He simply goes, elsewhere. The east is vast, stretching far beyond the maps of Elrond or Denethor. It's a landscape of deserts, jungles, towering mountains, and wind-bent plains where old spirits still dance in the dark. And into this emptiness walks a stranger, tall, golden-eyed, with a voice like warm honey and a presence you can't quite remember when you turn your head. The men of the East, fractured and tribal, know little of the Vala, less of Morgoth. Their myths are filled with fire serpents, star beasts, and wandering gods who speak in dreams. So when Sauron arrives, cloaked in a new name, he does not mention war or domination. No, he teaches. He heals. He whispers. The Elves, meanwhile, are far too occupied. Celebrimbor, grandson of Fëanor, crafts marvels in a region. Gil-galad holds his kingdom in Lindon, and the dwarves dig deeper into Khazad-dûm, unaware of what slumbers far below. No one watches the east. Sauron knows this. He prefers it that way. Middle-earth historians still debate whether Sauron truly believed in order during these early years, whether he sincerely thought he could build something better than Morgoth's reign of fear. After all, for a time, he seems almost benevolent. In distant valleys, irrigation flows. Temples rise, not to him, not yet, but to old spirits he conveniently reinterprets. Metallurgy advances. Astronomy deepens. People prosper, but always under his gaze. Of course, not all is peaceful. In the waning centuries of the Second Age, small signs begin to appear. Travelers vanish in the east. Strange symbols, circles with lines radiating like a burning sun, are carved into standing stones. A Númenorian outpost vanishes without trace. Gil-galad sends scouts, but they return with only rumors of golden priests and cities that seem to move in the dust. Some elves begin to suspect. Galadriel, ever sensitive to the unseen, writes of a shadow growing in forgotten lands. But no one listens, not yet. Even Saruman, who walks among the wise, remains unconcerned, absorbed in the westward flow of power. Meanwhile, Sauron experiments. You see, he's not content with memory. He needs permanence. Morgoth ruled by brute strength, and that failed. Sauron seeks devotion, worship. In the great empty spaces of Rhûn, he begins drafting the blueprint for what will become the first great cult of men. And not just any men, warlords, mystics, architects, midwives, dancers, and desert kings. He doesn't need their fear. He needs their will. One of the stranger tidbits from this time involves a temple built entirely underground, lit by mirrored sunstones, filled with molten brass sculptures, each depicting a golden benefactor with countless arms and a smiling mask. The elves never found it, but some say it still echoes with music even now. Elsewhere, strange alliances form. A serpent queen in the south, described as having the voice of a harp and the eyes of a storm, receives visions of a coming savior cloaked in light. She begins offering her people's loyalty to this unseen Lord of Gifts. Meanwhile, scattered human tribes begin uniting under star-shaped banners, and someone, no one knows who, teaches them to write using a beautiful, spiraled script not seen since Númenor's earliest days. Then comes the forging of the rings. While Sauron works the east in secret, he dons a new face in the west. Anatar, Lord of Gifts. We all know how that ends. With the forging of the rings of power in a region, Sauron sets his trap. One side offering knowledge and magic to the elves, the other building a base of devoted worship in the Forgotten Lands. It's a classic multitasking villain moment. Efficiency matters even when you're immortal. When the elves uncover his deception and war breaks out, Sauron retreats, but only in the west. In the east, he never left. He never had to. As the last alliance marches to confront Sauron at the end of the Second Age, they do so from the west alone.
Gil-galad,
Elendil, Isildur, glorious names all, but none of them truly understood how much power he had already gathered beyond their reach. While their swords gleam beneath Mount Doom, thousands of leagues away, fire dancers in forgotten cities offer prayers to a golden-eyed savior. It is said that even as Sauron's body falls beneath Elendil's shattered blade, across the Red Desert, a child is born bearing a star-shaped birthmark, declared a sign that the flame has not died. No one in Gondor heard that prophecy. A whisper in the dust, in distant lands beyond Gondor's reach, Sauron walks in secret among men, shaping a dark cult under many names. The desert winds carry secrets better than any whisper, and in the endless plains beyond the Sea of Rhûn, legends walk with bare feet and eyes painted in ash. Sauron is not dead, he is not even truly defeated. His body may be lost beneath the crushing blows of the last alliance, but his spirit, forged in the ancient furnaces of Morgoth's will, is not so easily unmade. While the West celebrates victory and erects statues of Elendil and Gil-galad, Sauron, now bodiless, gathers himself in the dark corners of the world, just as he did once before. But this time, he does not seek to rebuild immediately. He waits, he watches, he learns from every mistake. In the East, the world forgets him more slowly. It is in this long silence after the Second Age that the true cunning of Sauron blossoms. He is no longer the roaring tyrant who marched armies from Barad-dûr. He becomes a whisper, a vision in a dream, a glint in the corner of your eye as you kneel in prayer. He begins to take many names. In the emerald jungles south of Rhûn, they call him the Pale Flame. In the high plateaus of Khund, he is the Master of Dust. In the eastern mountains, the Ever-Watcher. He is a teacher of dreams, a bringer of order, and sometimes just a voice that promises something better if you would only kneel a little longer and speak his name in a language long forgotten. One tale, half legend, half fevered journal, speaks of a hermit in the hills of the Seven Stones who claimed to have eaten light after being taught by a stranger with no shadow. He built a tower, open at the top, where birds now gather and scream until nightfall. No one knows what became of him, but locals still avoid the place. Sauron's genius lies not in domination, but infiltration. He doesn't conquer cities. He appears in visions to their priests. He doesn't topple kings. He subtly encourages a sickly prince to execute his stronger brothers. By the time a warlord bows before his image, they believe it was their idea all along. And what's more dangerous than a tyrant? A beloved one. Back in the lands of Gondor and Arnor, the North Kingdom weakens. Arnor fractures into Arthedain, Rhûdor, and Cardolan. The Dunedain become scattered, tired, and fewer in number. And yet, no one sends scouts to the east. Why would they? The shadows are quiet, too quiet. But we, dear listener, know better. Somewhere in the grasslands of far Harad, stone temples rise, slanted pyramids without doors, filled with murals of radiant kings surrounded by spiraling suns. They're built by hand, no tools.
No blueprints. No explanation.
One of these temples contains a massive obsidian basin in the shape of a single unblinking eye. If you whisper into it, legend says it whispers back. Meanwhile, in Rovanion, east of Mirkwood, rumors grow of a gathering storm. Small human clans speak of a Starmouth, a being who can speak fire and silence wolves. A few brave Númenorian-descended scholars venture eastward to investigate. Most vanish. One returns, eyes burned white, speaking only in riddles about a man made of gold who walks without leaving footprints. Now, here's where it gets spicy. We know from Tolkien's main narrative that Gandalf, Saruman, and the other Astari arrive in the Third Age. But Middle-earth historians still debate whether some of these lesser-known miracles and mysterious apparitions from earlier times were actually misunderstood interactions with Sauron, or something else entirely. After all, the East never got Maia consultants in nice gray cloaks.
No helpful wizards.
Just one former lieutenant of Morgoth, and an endless horizon. And while all this unfolds, we see two seemingly minor events from the Lord of the Rings proper that suddenly feel less minor. First, Saruman's obsession with the East. Before he fully turns traitor, Saruman journeys far into the lands beyond Mordor, gathering scrolls and symbols alien to even the elves. Why? Because he senses something out there. Not just old power, but organized devotion, ancient and intentional. His desire to match Sauron begins out there, in ruined ziggurats and echoing tombs. Second, the Easterlings. Remember those grim-faced warriors who march with Mordor in the War of the Ring? Where did they come from? Why did they follow Sauron so blindly? It's almost as if they weren't conquered but raised. As if their grandfathers worshipped him. As if, for centuries, they'd seen the eye not as terror, but as a promise. You'd think the free peoples would have noticed, but the West, wrapped in pride and isolation, forgets what it cannot see. Even the elves withdraw. Lothlorien becomes a starlit pocket dimension. Rivendell closes its borders. The dwarves dig in. The north is covered in barrows, the south in squabbling kings. No one tracks the pilgrimages eastward of cultists, madmen, and would-be prophets. All they know is that occasionally, strange relics wash up from the Red Mountains. Rings that do not tarnish, coins with a burning eye, and once, a preserved hand clutching a brass scepter. Oh, and let's not forget one of the oddest stories from this time. The Festival of Fire Ants. An annual ritual in a jungle city whose name is unpronounceable, where thousands line up to walk barefoot through glowing embers, chanting in a lost tongue. Why? Because they believe it will bring them closer to the eye. No one knows who started the tradition, but murals of a horned man with starburst eyes suggest. Well, you get it. Through it all, Sauron never stops adapting. He no longer just builds fortresses, he builds myths. The East doesn't just serve him, it believes him. The tragedy is that even as the Third Age begins and the Free Peoples prepare for new threats, dragons, orcs, maybe another Balrog or two, they still do not look east. The map ends at the Sea of Rhûn. Beyond here, there be monsters, it may as well say, and Sauron, he's happy to be that monster, because monsters are feared, but gods are followed. The Black Hand spreads, temples rise, sacrifices burn, and Sauron's influence spreads like ink in water across Rhûn and Harad. The sun rises in the east every morning, but no one in the west truly looks toward it. They feel the warmth, but never question its source. And in that neglect, Sauron thrives. His presence now stretches across entire regions. Rhûn is no longer just an unexplored blur on a map. It is his. Not officially, of course. No flag flies with his sigil. No throne bears his name. But when warlords kneel to the one who shapes, when city-states build altars to a voice that speaks only through dreams, and when mothers whisper tales of a great flame that protects and punishes, then Sauron's dominion is not of territory, but of belief. In the dense riverlands of Inner Rhûn, temples begin appearing with eerie synchronicity. Massive circular halls with open ceilings and floors carved in spirals. Worshippers, barefoot, robed in ochre, gather every new moon to chant names not recorded in Elvish nor Mannish tradition. They don't say Sauron, but their mouths move in ways that suggest they are trying to. The cults are many and varied. Some focus on purity through fire. Others venerate knowledge, recording the movements of stars on great obsidian discs. Still others believe Sauron lives within them already, waiting to be awakened by ritual fasting, burning herbs, and occasional snake venom. Weird flex, but okay. These aren't fringe zealots. This is organized religion, ritualized, expanding, generational. Children grow up learning the stories. Elders debate interpretations. Priests claim visions. Sauron is now not only feared or respected, but trusted. This influence is not accidental. You see, while the West decays, Gondor's stewards clinging to old glory, Rhûn barely formed, the North shattered, Sauron refines his model. Each region becomes a testing ground. In the hot salt dunes of Khund, he tries divine monarchy, a line of rulers descended from a star father. In the deep forests east of the Orocarni, he encourages animist cults that speak to glowing stones believed to be the teeth of the flame. In southern Harad, he mixes old serpent myths with new fire doctrines, rebranding himself as Zonrock, the Night Star Reborn. Catchy, right? But Sauron isn't just playing culture games. He's quietly raising armies, not just of warriors, but of faithful. When your entire society believes your enemy is a heretic, war is no longer politics. It's a sacred duty. Around this time, we hit two more familiar plot beats from The Lord of the Rings. Ones that slip by most readers but take on haunting new meaning now. First, the Black Númenorians. These aren't just rogue sailors or embittered exiles. They're descendants of those who once worshipped Morgoth openly, yes, but more importantly, they're bridge builders. After Númenor's fall, many settle along the southern coasts and begin reaching out, not westward, but east. They bring language, law, and most dangerously, ideology. The result? A hybrid theology, fusing Morgothic domination with Sauronic order. You get empires that burn libraries and build ziggurats in the same breath. Middle-earth historians still debate whether the Haradrim pantheon's burning king was an old fire god or just an early form of Sauron's image. But let's be honest, we know which way the eye turns. Second, we get the mention of the Wainriders. These fierce nomads charge into Gondor from the east during the Third Age, their war chariots rattling across the Pelennor fields centuries before Sauron openly returns. But here's the thing, they don't just invade, they chant. They sing songs in ancient dialects that Gondorian scribes can't translate. They bear red tattoos in the shape of a wheel with a single eye in the center. That's not war, that's crusade. And Sauron? He never even has to appear. By now, he rarely takes physical form. No more beautiful faces, no more elegant lies. He becomes a concept like gravity, like prophecy, unseen but felt, a field of power. When the Easterlings sacrifice a white bull and red omens in its smoke, they believe they're hearing his will. When priests of the fire-mirrored temple demand 100 nights of silence from initiates, they believe it brings them closer to his voice. And here's your quirky tidbit. In one isolated mountain town, every building is constructed in an outward spiral, walls sloping counterclockwise. The inhabitants believe that inward-turning architecture traps the soul. All their beds face east. When asked why, one elder simply said, "So the eye can see us sleep. Cozy." Now, you might ask, why didn't the Free Peoples do anything about all this? Why not send an expedition, or at least a politely passive-aggressive letter? Well, Gondor tries. Once, in the reign of King Romendasil II, they push east across the Anduin and establish a fort called Tir Ithraid. They last maybe a generation. Then, one by one, the soldiers begin reporting nightmares. Some start carving spirals into their armor. Others vanish entirely. Eventually, the whole fort is found deserted, doors open, hearths cold, a single blackened tree growing in the courtyard. Gondor marks the region unfit for settlement. Very diplomatic. But the truth is, by this time, it's too late. Entire generations have grown up in the East never hearing the names of Elbereth or Manwë. They know only the one flame, the eye without lid, the giver of structure, the shaper of heat and cold. These names echo through song and smoke. The West has its fading legends. The East has living ones. One final event to consider, the Watchers at Cirith Ungol. Tolkien describes these eerie, immobile statues that guard the pass, silent, watchful eyes. But where did that design come from? Why eyes? Why fear? Some suggest it wasn't Mordor alone that made them, but artisans from the East, trained in the architectural principles of devotion. Statues not just to terrify intruders, but to appeal to the eye itself. To say, "We are watching for you, watching with you." By now, Sauron's dominion stretches from the dunes of Far Harad to the snowy peaks of the Red Mountains. Not in banners or forts, but in belief. He has rewritten the mythos of half a continent. Not bad for a spirit with no body. And the West, they still think the danger lies in Mordor. The return of the eye. As the Third Age dawns, Sauron prepares for open war, drawing strength from the forgotten East, while Gondor sleeps. The years pass. The Third Age grinds onward like a weary horse under a gray sky. Gondor fades. Arnor crumbles. The Elves continue their slow, melancholy retreat into the West. But in the East, something grows silent and relentless. Sauron is no longer merely a whisper or a mask worn by fire priests. He is beginning to reveal himself again. Not fully, not yet, but just enough. Like the eye of a storm flickering open above a black sea. His return to Mordor is not the beginning of his comeback. It is simply the announcement. The dress rehearsal was already over. The cults, temples, and hidden cities of the East have been preparing for this moment for centuries. The foundations have been laid stone by stone, prayer by prayer, all awaiting the eye's reawakening. By the time Sauron takes form again in Dol Guldur, masquerading as the necromancer, he no longer has to build new alliances. He simply activates the old ones. Commanders in Khund sharpen their curved blades. Temple oracles in Rhûn cease their long silence and begin speaking in tongues. Black ships from Umbar start arriving just a little more frequently. The world of men is shifting, and the free peoples still think they're alone in the dark. You might remember from The Lord of the Rings how Sauron eventually returns to Barad-dûr, forging the eye that watches without sleep. What's rarely considered is how welcomed that return is in some parts of the world. While Gondor readies its shields and Rhûn sounds its horns, in the east, festivals break out. Yes, festivals. In a city called Narluk, far beyond the Sea of Rhûn, tens of thousands gather in the Grand Spiral Amphitheater to celebrate the rekindling. Lanterns made from polished bone and orange quartz line the stone pathways. Children wear single-eye masks. Dancers whirl in imitation of flames. And at the height of the ritual, the High Interpreter chants, "The flame returns to guide the ash." It's not rebellion, it's rapture. And here comes another canonical event, viewed now through this cracked mirror. Remember the siege of Minas Tirith? We see the Haradrim arrive with their Alapants, the Easterlings cloaked in gold and crimson, the black Númenorians leading Mordor's vanguard. To the free peoples, this is a nightmare. To the Easterlings, it is the fulfillment of prophecy. The eye has risen. Their savior calls. The men of the West see monsters. The East sees martyrs. Now here's a detail so obscure it barely survived the scribes. The pilgrimage of smoke. A slow-moving caravan of 12,000 followers that journeyed from the deep south to the Morgai, the outer slopes of Mordor. They did not come to fight. They came to witness. They carried no weapons, only ashen urns. Their own skin painted in spirals. No one knows what became of them. The orcs probably didn't care. But in the journals of a Haradrim chieftain captured during the war, he describes them as chosen vessels, whose deaths would feed the eye's awakening. Even now, Middle-earth historians still debate whether this was purely symbolic, or if, in some obscure and terrible way, their deaths did empower Sauron's return. After all, belief in Middle-earth isn't just cultural, it's metaphysical. To be worshipped is to be fed. But Sauron's real strength lies not in temples or chants. It lies in what no one saw coming. For as Frodo stumbles through Mordor, as Aragorn rallies the armies of the West, and as Gandalf holds the walls of Minas Tirith together with sheer willpower and sass, the East is already prepared to continue without the ring. You heard that right. While the West ties its hope and fear to that one singular object, Sauron has already seeded a network too deep to unravel. The eye may fall, the tower may crumble, but the memory, the myth, the machine remains. When Sauron is finally cast down and the ring destroyed, fireworks burst across Gondor's skies. But in the East, the silence is complex. Some cults collapse. Some priests go mad. Some declare Sauron's destruction a test and double their devotion. In Far Khund, a new prophet rises, claiming to be the final spiral, a vessel for Sauron's will in exile. In Narluk, a flame is kept burning night and day, waiting for the day the eye opens once more. And while the Fourth Age begins, Aragorn crowned, the Shire cleansed, the Elves departing, the East becomes the great unfinished tale. You see, Tolkien gave us the West. He gave us the Nine, the Ring, the Hobbits. But the East, that's the land of shadows and maybes, of unanswered questions, of masks behind masks. So when the tales end and peace seems restored, remember, the maps were never finished. The shadows never fully fade. And somewhere, beyond the Sea of Rhûn, someone still whispers the spiral's name. Because in the east, stories don't end. They wait. And now the fires grow dim. The chants fade into memory. The flickering torches of those ancient temples gutter in the wind. And the red sands of Rhûn drift once more in quiet spirals. Whatever Sauron built out there, in belief, in ritual, in shadow, it sleeps again. Not gone, not defeated, merely hushed. In the cool hush of night, the world settles. The eye has closed. For now, let your thoughts slow, like the dust settling over forgotten altars. Let your breath follow the old winds that move gently across the distant plains, soft and steady, ancient and kind. The stars will above, unhurried. The shadows no longer press against the door. They retreat. You're safe. The long journey through Middle-earth has brought us far tonight. Through deserts and forests, temples and towers, myth and memory. From the fall of Morgoth to the rise of the Eye, and finally to its extinguishing. And though the story has darkened, you've made it through. You always do. Let the silence now be a comfort, not an absence. Let the whispering wind of the east carry your thoughts far away from waking worries. Let your limbs rest easy. Let your breath be slow and warm. In the east, the eye sleeps, and here, so may you,